our best to minimize, but I want to assure you that globally there is no country where you can say is 100% free of these challenges of late arrival of materials. But they have been managed. If you are able to have 80% materials arriving on time, then nobody hears about the 20% where you are slightly late in commencement. In Nigeria, in the past, it had been a challenge because it also was an opportunity to do rigging and to perpetuate quite a number of electoral offences. Since we came in, we've partnered with security agencies, with the Air Force, with the Navy, and the challenges with regards to taking materials to inaccessible areas, whether in the mountainous regions or in the desert areas or in the riverine areas, we have minimized those challenges drastically. Where it is necessary to move materials by aircraft or helicopter, the Navy helped us during the 2011 elections. Where it was to move it in the riverine areas, the Navy helped us and they even provided security to minimize challenges arising from the activities of militant groups and so on. So we've minimized the challenges of logistics and the late distribution of materials tremendously, but it has not been eliminated. We even devised a strategy in terms of you take materials to the farthest places, before you take to the nearest places. But in Edo State, it also turned out to be a challenge, because while we distributed materials in all the other local governments that were far away, in Eredo and the other local government in the city, we had challenges.
And that brought, a lot of suspicion as to why people getting materials on time in the outskirts and not getting materials in the city itself.
Exactly. But those challenges, there are always reasons, In Eredo, for example, there was a mix-up and the security people prevented the movement of materials because they said they had not received orders to allow people to move out of the local government area to take the materials to the ward. And by the time it got to the ward level, before it is distributed, because at every level of distribution, we also involve party agents. They have to ensure that the materials that are being distributed are actually the right materials that are going. And it's a delay. It causes delay. And there are arguments sometimes, and before you realize it, it does represent a delay. But if you look at what we've done, from 2011 to the subsequent governorship elections we've done, we have minimized the challenges of logistics by about 60%. What we are doing now is, before we get to 2015, we are deploying additional strategies and measures to see how we can further improve upon that. But I must say that the journalists also don't help matters, because they are looking for faults, I'm sorry to say. So they are looking.
Naturally.
So wherever they see delay, that becomes the headline. Not taking into consideration, if you say Edo, for example, if you look at our logistics arrangement, what was the percentage of delay? If you take the holistic picture of logistics deployment, it was definitely less than 15%. But that was the issue, delay. Every time you see one incidence of delay, nobody recognizes the fact that there were 99 or 80% of other places where there was no delay. But we will keep on doing our best to improve upon that.
On the issue of logistics, now some people have suggested that perhaps INEC should have staggered elections. I mean, you already have staggered elections in terms of, conducting the state elections, presidential elections another weekend, and, elections for the Senate and House of Representatives another weekend. But some people are saying maybe you should do it on a state-by-state basis. That they think that INEC might be a little more efficient conducting elections like that. What do you have to say to that?
Certainly, some staggering helps the process. And the kind of staggering that we have now, in terms of saying these kinds of elections should take place and then, you sequence it, that kind of sequencing of major elections, I think, has been helpful. It helps us to focus and it helps us to pool resources and to deploy them appropriately. But if you take staggering to a staggering extent, if I can put it that way, really it will also will have its own challenges. It means, for example, if we have to do every election state by state, you know, it will take us, if you are doing elections in 36 states and the FCT, and we have to do it, say, every month, it will take us 3 years to do the election.
Like in regions?
You know, I think you cannot do elections in regions. If you are doing presidential election, for example, you have to do it nationally and in every place, because the results have to be announced, you know, for a candidate to be returned. So what I'm saying is that there is a limit to which we can do staggering, you know. But the challenge for us is to have the free hand as INEC, to have the legal framework, to be able to see, okay, how efficiently and effectively can you conduct elections, and then we can decide what level of staggering is acceptable. But if you legalize it, like say do elections state by state or do elections region by region, you will create additional problems which are not presently anticipated.
Are you having any legal bottlenecks right now?
Well, as of now, I don't think there are any specific legal bottlenecks. I think the legal regime permits INEC to sequence elections. You know,
okay, but that
elections.
Means
but that means that you can either do presidential, you can do a combination of elections, but sequentially. You know, whether you do presidential elections separately or you do governorship with senatorial or a combination of these. But at least sequencing suggests some form of staggering also.
What about introduction of innovations, bringing innovative ideas? Are you hindered in any way?
No, we are not hindered in any way in terms of making innovations and improving the electoral process, even in the use of technology. The only clear categoric hindrance is in electronic voting. The law says categorically that electronic voting is prohibited. And until that prohibition is lifted, we even have challenges in terms of experimenting and piloting, you know, or getting some machines and beginning to see which are the best that can be used for electronic voting. And we have recommended to the National Assembly, as they review the Constitution, to also look at that provision and perhaps remove that prohibition, so that once it is removed, we may not be able to do it in 2015, but we can begin to experiment and to see, because there are several models of electronic voting, we can begin to identify which models are suitable to Nigeria and under what circumstances and how they can be improved. But otherwise, really there is no hindrance. As I speak with you, we are trying our best to ensure that we bring additional deployment of technology to the elections in 2015. We are going to issue permanent voters cards, and these permanent voters cards are chip-based, embedded chip, carrying all our biometrics that were captured during the registration. And we intend on election day in 2015 to use a card reader to verify and to authenticate who is the true owner of that card. And we believe that once we are able to do this successfully, then all this phenomenon of politicians purchasing voters' cards, you know, and giving other people to come and vote with it on election day will be eliminated.
That will be including a lot using the card reader. Because you know that when you use the DDC machines at the time, even though those who were handling for INEC said they had conducted several tests, but when they got to the field, they experienced a different challenge.
Yes. Clearly, as you are aware, we didn't have enough time to do piloting before the registration. You know, we had to do a massive biometric registration on the eve of the election, and obviously there were certain challenges. And at the last minute, we discovered that the factory setting of the fingerprint scanner was so sensitive that it was not reading many fingers. But if you recall, we had a period of about 23 days for the registration. It was meant to be 2 weeks because there was massive response by Nigerians. We extended it by another week or so. You know, if you notice, the first 3 days were the most challenging Because that's when people were coming and their fingers were being rejected, and instead of taking 5 minutes to register a person, it was taking